advent of social media platforms, no doubt journalism received a boost. These platforms, however, came with its so much challenges. How can we regulate stories, news, information, happenings filtering around the globe? These are some of the questions my guest, Mr. Emmanuel Bello. He is the publisher, Kwarara Fat Reporters online newspaper, former editor, Leadership newspaper, and former Commissioner of Information, Taraba State, will be providing answers to. It's nice to have you in our studio.
It's a pleasure.
All right, now, with the social media in place, don't you think journalism is being threatened?
No, because an aspect of journalism itself is what's happening online.
Okay.
Because the purpose of the trade itself is to, to ensure that people are properly informed. So it's not a threat. It's not as if it's supposed to actually enhance journalism, not to push it out of the market. But the problem, like you stated in your intro, is the issue of filtering, of helping people to know how to, where to go to for their information, how to process it, and the kind of reaction or action they should that these stories are supposed to generate. So that's just the challenge. But it will interest you to know that a whole lot of people actually depend on online medium these days for knowing anything that is happening. Because you go into a room and there are 5-6 people and you see everybody not even looking at the television in front of them with their smartphones, looking at the phone. So everything has been reduced to the palm. And so a whole lot of people depend on this. What we should do is not to fight this, what looks like an invasion into the journalism profession, but to actually help the end users to know how to be careful and tips, probably equip them with tips on how to, filter, like you use the word filter, and regulate for themselves what they should hold as fake news or as true news that they can really work with. Okay,
now people have smartphones. They love to share pictures, information, news. As events break, they do that. Now, you're a very strong player in the profession. Where is the place of authenticity, really?
Well, you see, there are two ends to the whole challenge. First, those who are quick to want to break the story,
yes.
And then unfortunately, those who are quick to first hear the story. There are people who are very quick to say they are the first to hear a thing,
to break it.
Yeah, to break it. Apart from those breaking it, there are the other side. The other side of the spectrum is the people who want to actually be the first to hear. Mm-hmm. So there are people who are just ready to be the first to hear a thing. Then there are those who are ready to be the first to break. Between the two of them, they run into errors. Those who are quick before they verify a story, before they do anything to this, before they understand the story, they are quick to run. We've all made those mistakes. When I was in the newspaper, it was the same thing. You hear a story. Of course, the paper helps because you've got time to filter the story. But when you're actually running, putting news on social platform, the temptation is there to be the first to break the news, whatever that means. And so that's the first thing we need to guard against, that when you are breaking a story, you should be able to verify those stories. Sometimes it's not difficult to know what news is fake. There will be elements of exaggeration. There will be elements of improbabilities. There will be elements of all sorts of things, disconnects, even in most cases, also because they're imbued with a lot of fake data and everything. If you just cross-check them, just basic check on some of the things that are thrown out there, you won't understand the fakeness.
Really, exaggerations sell.
Well, and sensationalism too,
yes.
Sadly, yes. But like back in the day when newspaper was the in thing, it's still the in thing. But when it was everything, you see headlines that try to jazz up, a report and all of that. Now in the social media, that is actually that. There are people who can even just do a story on the social media without saying breaking, as if everything is breaking. Something happens by 8 a.m. and then somebody is still saying it's breaking by 11, which is a misnomer. So you should guard against it, because there's a whole lot of people trying to practically swindle people, trying to hoodwink people with stories and everything. So you be careful how you take it out.
Okay, now the present administration is working seriously on curbing fake news, and looks like fake news is the in thing for those that carry fake news, falsehood. Now, what can we do? Are there regulations? Are there laws to curb this
No, first basically there are laws,
Okay.
that regulate all of that, and then individuals can actually sue for news carried about them, about their
Defamation.
events, defamations, and all of that. Even online, people now know that they can go to court actively, and
Okay.
people can get even picked or arrested for stories that are not true, for falsehood and all of that. So basically, there's that from the point of view of legislation and regulation and law and order. That is coming from that side. But again, our concern should be the end users, the Nigerian public, itself. The problem of how they will be able to differentiate between what is fake news and true news. So that is where the challenge is. And for our people, especially now, a whole lot of things are out there. To the point that even professionals or people that you can call stakeholders in the business sometimes get even deceived by some of these stories because they sound so truthful. They sound so sometimes quotes are put in the mouth of people, and then these are credible people, but of course they didn't say those things.
And they attribute it to them.
And they attribute it to them. And then sometimes they also talk about situations or remember the ministerial list, the back and forth. As we speak now, just recently, a whole list of offices and
a very long one.
Thank you. It came out and all of that. But you see, again, like I say, basic checks. Who is to, for instance, in the case of the ministerial list, who is to talk about it? The authorities, the government.
Of course.
So an individual cannot just come and say, so you get to check it. And the worst one sometimes is that they sign it up with, for instance, say one of the spokesmen of the president. But for those of us who have access to some of these people, it's also easy to actually check with them. And thankfully, some of them actually come out in time to say, look, no, this is not coming from us. There's a verified handle. There's a place where you can find authentic news coming from us. So, and it's getting better. Unfortunately, too, there are people who are prepared to believe any kind of fake news because it fits into their narratives and all of that.
And all of that. Okay. Now, I know in some climes, they regulate what goes out on the social media. You just can't post. It just can't go outside. The word can't just sit like that. It has to be within. Can't we do that here?
Well, again, when you do that, you balance it with the crisis of democracy, freedom of speech, and the rights of people to first to know, to say, to talk, and all of that, freedom of speech and everything. In dealing with such kind of restriction or censorship and all that, you need to also take into cognizance that problem. But again, beyond that, beyond censorship that you find in some countries around the world, which is serious. I mean, it has its own downside too, because when you censor like that, you want your people to know only what you want them to know. It's not always the best way to.
Sounds autocratic.
Yeah, very autocratic. And dictatorial too.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really help in the flow of information and all that. Again, like I say, the most important thing is for government, for instance, which in most third world countries and this part of the world, or developing countries, it's they are the owners or the custodian of the news. What they need to do is beef up, their ability to disseminate information, talk to the people again and again. So when you engage the people and you narrow that gap between those who are holding the news and those who need to know, you'll be helping in curbing fake news. You talk to the people often.
Because
if you
people
do that,
want to know,
people want to know. There's a crave to know.
Yes.
And if you do not give them what they want to hear, they will get it from another source. So government media handlers and those who speak for government, because again, a lot of some of these news and stories are coming from that sector.
Yes.
People distort what is happening in government. People give it a reading. People give it a meaning. They they give it they give some of the concept definitions and all of that. So it behoves on the government people to ensure that they always, constantly, and this is not just maybe some off-the-line press release from time to time. No, almost on a daily basis. Yes, you talk to the people, you explain to them, you explain the concept to them.
Now,
don't just assume people will understand.
Public engagement is very key. It's important. Now, how can the freedom of information be a help
that too
in regulating what goes out?
Exactly, that too is there, and then it has to be operationalized in such a way that people can actually access the information they want. If they want to find out what police is doing, if they want to find out what the army is doing. If there was a story the other day that 1,000 people were buried in some parts on some marked graves in the northeast, the military, well, I think it took a day or so, but they came out and debunked it. But what people need with that kind of a thing is that while some are pushing that narrative that, look, we've lost 1,000 soldiers in a war, because for some people, or those who are pushing that kind of story, that's what they want to push. The military too, using all its avenues for, relating with people, with the public, should have found ways to actually, take over that discussion and that narrative. And they did a good job on this one, because they were able to explain that, no, this is not what has happened, this is what has happened, that's what. So when you continuously engage the people, beyond even restriction, beyond censorship, when you open the space up for more information, and you tell the people we're not hiding anything. Of course, there are official secrets. Yeah, you down the tension. Apart from that, you explain to people, because in most cases, it is just misunderstanding.
Yes.
People don't understand what is going on, so they create their own understanding, create their own concept, and run with it.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel, Bello, thank you so much. And that's it on the Media Review segment this week. Don't forget, please do not